Do you ever wonder how great leaders in the community make things happen? When they encounter new, unexpected challenges like a pandemic, how do they continue to successfully make an impact? Welcome to That Sounds Terrific, the podcast that connects you with these amazing people. Get insights on what they do to meet their goals, find out how you can help them in their mission, and learn their methods so you can be more successful at what you do. Welcome to That Sounds Terrific with host Nick Koziel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of That Sounds Terrific. I'm your host, Nick Koziel, and joining me today is Merry Constantino from ProdcutLogic. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nick.
It's great to have you here. And honestly, we were chatting a few months ago, I think it is now, and we're at a conference where we met, and I thought it would be great to have you on the show because of what your company does. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and kind of how you founded it?
Certainly. Okay, so ProdcutLogic is an industrial design firm founded 32 years ago now, which time flies, I guess, when you're having fun, which we always seem to do. But I came to Western New York as a toy designer for Fisher-Price. Prior to that, first job out of college, had my degree in industrial design through the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and had a great career at Fisher-Price designing toys initially, but then consumer products, what we would call baby gear, the dressers and high chairs and that type of thing. And it gave me the motivation to start ProdcutLogic. So I considered moving on to other companies, around the country who were similar to Fisher-Price, and decided, no, I really like Buffalo. I have the confidence to, and what you don't know is good when you're launching something like that. So
Yeah.
I launched ProdcutLogic, and
Well,
it's been
that's
a
awesome.
good career.
Well, that's so cool. Yeah, everything's an adventure when you're an entrepreneur, right? Especially
Yes,
when
it
you're
is.
doing it for the first time. And that's something that we've covered a couple times on the show, just talking about starting a business from scratch has a lot of challenges. And I can't believe that you've had a business for 33 years. That's amazing. So, can you tell us maybe a little bit about some of your, earlier challenges and what you had to overcome to kind of have ProdcutLogic started?
Sure. Well, the small or the bigger the project or job, the more you need help with, more of a team you need. And when I started out, I was designing smaller baby gear types of products for Fisher-Price competition, and they had a whole team
Right.
of people, behind the scenes who would take my conceptual work, and I'd work with engineering, and we would develop a product together. When I developed more work locally in Buffalo, I needed that team. Sometimes when I work with entrepreneurs, with inventors, they really have nothing supporting them except a very good idea and a patent. And so building that team of resources, and Western New York has fabulous business owners, entrepreneurs, engineers. So my initial challenge was actually putting together that good collective of people that I could bring on.
Yeah, that's a challenge in it itself, is putting your team together, and something that I always look for, in any job is a good, strong team. And sometimes when you're being hired from, by a company or wherever you're going to work, you're kind of not stuck maybe, but you get the team that you're dealt. And it must have been exciting for you to try to be able to put your own team together, be able to have more control over what you were doing at your company, right?
Yeah, very much.
So, um, why don't you talk a little bit more about what ProdcutLogic does, what kind of company you are, and what the different people that you serve?
Certainly. So as an industrial design team or firm, we work with such a variety of people and companies. So larger companies like Praxair, Boston Scientific, we've worked with international companies where company has started and left to work in one case Israel. So we
Hmm.
work remotely. And then we work with startups. Both Rochester and Buffalo have an amazing startup community. And we have found that a lot of times they need our support, industrial design support. And so they are doing what I did initially. They're projecting into the future. They are building their teams and they're developing very novel product. And so
Yeah.
we come in as the industrial designer on that team. And then we also work with inventors who literally sometimes have come in with one time a napkin sketch that you know, that is a very special napkin sketch, but where they have an idea, they know from personal experience, potential, you know, sometimes it's in their day job, they
Mhm.
have discovered that there's a better way to do something, and they would like to do that. Sometimes they've already been working with a patent attorney, and the
Mhm.
patent attorney sends them to our company to develop it further before they can actually write a patent for it.
Mhm.
You know, we try to get as broad and as novel a product as possible for them so that they have solid claims.
Yeah, that's interesting because that was something I was going to ask next was like, how do you get the business, what stage of development you're at? And you sort of answered that right there. But is there like it doesn't seem like you have like a particular like niche area or even company size. Is there a tendency for you to work more with startups, or is there a type of business that you tend to kind of see more often than not?
You know, that it's kind of trending towards startups, and just about all of our work is through referral.
Mhm.
So it makes sense that, you know, if we're working with startups, it's going well, they're going to refer us to their peers.
Sure.
Um, I happen to be working with a company who is in the UB cultivator program,
Mhm.
and I think Rochester has something similar. But
Mhm.
these two fellows have been working with the cultivator to develop the resources they need to launch a product. And through that program, I've met some of the other uh, I can't inventors, I guess, founders.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like there's a lot of networking going on, both behind the scenes, and then also within different university structures and incubators and things like that.
Mhm. Right.
How do you find the time?
That's why you need a team because you can't be everywhere at once. But networking is something that is critical. And sitting on boards, giving back to the community, there have been so many ways that I have networked that I didn't intend, never expected to actually develop business out of it.
Mhm.
But, you know, over time, you get to know people and you refer them, they refer you. And we, of course, always have the repeat business. So a good
Yeah.
share of our business is repeat. And when I say repeat, it could be a little bit of work once a month. It could be somebody that comes back 5 years
Mhm.
later and said, that went well, let's do it again.
Sure. Sure. That's always like, a blessing and kind of an honor when people come back to you and say, you did a great job here, or, we'd love to kind of do more business with you in the future. I think that that's great, especially when it happens. Because how many times have you heard, yeah, we'd love to do it again, and then you never hear from that person, whether it's like social or business like, right?
Right.
So that's always a cool thing, right?
Sure. Well, it's statistically, you know, startups, you know, I think they say 2% launch and 1% make it. I don't know what current
Yeah.
statistics are, but when we're working with smaller companies who have not done this before, they sometimes haven't projected how much it's going to cost.
Hmm.
And that's a problem. I learned fairly early to almost scare them with what I think it will cost, because that's the worst thing, to bring somebody along and they get to a point where it's going to cost so much to actually manufacture the product that they hadn't anticipated.
Sure.
So I've learned to give them way more information than what they think they need.
Hmm.
They just want to have their first prototype.
Right.
That's always the goal, to have the working prototype. And so I do my best to educate them that it's a long road and it's an expensive process.
Yeah, like you said, you've been through this a bunch of different times, countless times probably at this point, and a lot of them have not maybe even gotten to that point. When you think about an entrepreneur, a lot of times they have a bunch of false starts, right? They might not have
Mhm.
even gotten to concept of design and the prototype stage even. So I
Right.
think it's great that you're letting them know about the other expenses. I'm sure certain things can be more effectively, developed or produced in the United States, and others might have to go overseas to be, made. If, can you talk a little bit about that? I've heard that there's that distinction, like some things can be made much cheaper overseas,
Mhm.
than in the United States and vice versa. So, do you tend to try to, push made in America, or is there just certain things that just have to go over?
But what I've learned is that the way manufacturers are working now is that they will actually fabricate it in the United States, but they'll go offshore for tooling.
Hmm.
So I've had two situations just in the last couple months, where the tooling price was kind of expensive. And that's where they're cutting steel or aluminum to injection mold something.
Yep.
Typically, our products are made that way. And we were given the choice by a domestic manufacturer to either make the tooling, if you want to say made in America, and my client really wanted to say made in America,
Yeah.
um, he could have the tooling made here, or he could have it made offshore. And the price was enough different. It was much more attractive to have
Yeah.
it made offshore, bring it back to do the injection molding. So
Hmm.
he made that choice, and I don't know what the percentage. I think that allowed him to say, made in America, because it
Right.
was.
Yeah.
Was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the middle of quoting another very large product and expensive tooling.
Hmm.
And the manufacturer said we could probably drop the tooling price by about 30% if
Yeah.
we had it made offshore, bring it back and do the molding here. So that's seems to be, from my experience, the way it's going, so that you're not making something, bringing, containers
Hmm.
across the ocean, which is time and
Right.
money, and going through that whole process of bringing it in.
Yeah.
So
No.
it's nice to know, it's, for me, that's going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, it's interesting for sure. And I another thing that popped in my head when you were talking earlier, to kind of switch gears a little bit, you're talking about, ways that you found business and that may have surprised you and things like that. And you talked about community impact and giving back. Can you share a little bit about how, you've discovered, business through that networking opportunity, and maybe some of the things that you are doing to give back to community, because I know that's very important to you.
Certainly. Probably the biggest thing that I have been consistently involved in is the Western New York Convention.
Mhm.
And that's a program that encourages young kids, gives them the tools, their teachers, their families, everybody's involved with this, K through 8,
Mhm.
introduces them to the entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurial process. But what they're really doing is solving a problem, and they're inventing,
Mhm.
and that it brings them, when you meet these kids and they're presenting to you their idea, where they've invented something that is helping themselves, helping grandma, helping the world.
Mhm.
There is nothing bigger than the smile on their face when they talk about what they've achieved. It gives them tremendous self-confidence.
Hmm.
Uh, this past summer, I get a call from my daughter, Mom, one of your inventors is selling his product at the farmer's market. I said, take a picture. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That really does bring the entrepreneurial spirit full circle.
Yeah, I love that. I have a son actually that I have four kids, and one of my sons, his twin, uh when he goes on and watches, like, they all watch like YouTube shorts and all of these things that I,
Mhm.
don't even understand sometimes, but some of them are watching like how, routines, like how kids get up and get ready for the day. And I'm like, why would you watch that? But my one son, he's on there, looking at how to rebuild 67 Mustang engine. He is looking at how to replace and calibrate brakes. All these things that, I'm like, why is he so interested in this stuff? He's always been very mechanical. He's 9 now, and he does, like, with my wife and even myself, sometimes it's like, oh, you can just do this to fix this, and he's very interested in that mechanical stuff. So I had never heard of this um thing that you're volunteering at, and I definitely want to get him involved in that, because he's always figuring something out. He's like the little mini MacGyver. So um
Well, I'll make sure that you have the information you need,
yeah,
because we've
well,
got this great workbook that the kids can be self-directed,
wonderful,
start to
wonderful.
finish.
And what I like about what this volunteering experience does, not only for you, I mean, there's that satisfaction, like you said, your daughter called you up, and one of the inventors is selling, his product at, a local market. That's the impact that you're having, vicariously through this this opportunity to help youth come up with entrepreneurial, like, business ideas. It really is this huge circle. It's not just helping one kid, it's helping a series of
Mhm.
children. It's helping the community, because these products are coming out and becoming available, or at least the concept are becoming available, and it just hits the community on so many different levels, and that's just awesome, Mary.
Mm. Actually, recently I was at a startup program, Startup Week
Hmm.
here in Buffalo, and I believe you have that in Rochester too.
Hmm.
And so I had a table promoting Invention Convention and looking for judges. I was amazed in the room of about 20 other people. Two of them had actually, they're adults now,
Hmm.
they had participated in Invention Convention when they were kids. They remembered what they had done, they remembered the experience, and now they are actually in an entrepreneurial environment as adults. So
Yeah, that's great. It's awesome, because like we were just talking about, I mean, like, it is that great cycle, and now they're coming back and telling you about it, and they're telling others about it. And
mhm.
in my mind, I always knew those things existed, especially at the collegiate level and in the high school level, but I love that it's, starting them early at, kindergarten and up. I think that's awesome. That's when a lot of people would argue that your mind is the most open to
Yes.
ideas, and I think that that's fabulous. So I applaud you
So,
for that. For
well,
sure.
I'll just say one more thing. They
Yeah.
actually learn that failure is good,
Yeah.
because there are, many iterations. And we all know that if you're fixing a faucet or you're, designing a faucet, there are so many ways to do it. And quite often the first couple fail. So
Yeah.
these kids learn that failure is actually a very good part of the process. And as when you were talking earlier about, businesses, it's like
Mhm.
fail fast, move on.
Yeah, and learn from that, right?
Yes.
And that's something, that I like. I just, on top of my mind, I'm thinking of sports. My sons play hockey, and they were up 4-0, and they ended up tying 4-4. And a little bit of, stopping skating and stuff like that. But even when you lose, like, you I have the philosophy where, it is just a game, and you're not going to win them all, but learn from that loss. You don't just win or lose. You learn from the experience, and the same thing goes for business. You Even when you win, you should be learning from that win, and you would learn a
Mhm.
lot more maybe from a loss, right? of
Right.
what maybe not to do in the future, but also like what worked. There were things
Hmm.
that it isn't. There's very few times in our lives where there something is like a complete and utter failure where nothing worked at all, right?
True.
So as long as you're learning from that, you're going to do better the next time. And again, like just what you were just saying, it gives the kids the opportunity to realize that failure is in a way an option
Hmm.
because it sets you up for
Sure.
the next win. So awesome, awesome. So I wanted to talk a little bit about also, how someone knows that it's time to come to your business, time to talk to Mary. How does someone determine that?
People have said they've been sitting on an idea for 10 years, or 5 years, and it's like an itch that you can't ignore. And sometimes that's what it is, or they feel that they now have the time.
Mhm.
Downturns in the economy, I have seen a trend where my business does not get worse, it gets better
Better.
because people finally have the time to address, and I'm talking more inventors, but they finally have the time to address this idea that they've had.
Hmm.
And they're so, often so concerned that if they don't hurry up and do it, somebody else will. And
Right.
sometimes that has happened.
Hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
in other cases, if it's a startup, they're already launched and need help massaging a product, or a larger company
Hmm.
where they may be doing a refresh on an idea, or their competition is getting ahead of them, and it's really time to bring out the next product with
Hmm.
more features, more current aesthetics.
Yeah.
And in some cases it's just technology.
Hmm.
So technology is moving at such an amazing speed, where we've gone from wired to wireless to smaller and smaller and smaller. And
Back to larger and
sometimes,
larger and larger with the phones, I've
right,
noticed.
right.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's actually driven by that kind of necessity. Got to keep up.
Yeah. No, I
Or
get it.
in some cases, technology has finally given a product the opportunity to exist, because you
Hmm.
can finally get it small enough to do what it needs to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Technology sometimes does need to come up with the innovation of the product, right? So,
Hmm.
you know, I laugh all the time because my brother, like, back when the cell phones were just coming, to become popular, I guess you'd say, and they were getting smaller and smaller and smaller. He had like the little, I don't know, was it called the cricket or something? And I remember he would like open it up and it was hard for him to hold because it was so small, but that was what everybody wanted, the smaller cell phone, because we didn't have these LCD screens yet. We didn't watch YouTube on them and things like that. And now the trend, that's why I was joking around earlier, is like they want bigger phones, and like some of them are just too big for me. So I must be getting old. But I just remember there was a Will Ferrell thing on SNL where he was like, had the little tiny phone, or he was checking his email on his ring. And it's just those things. But you're absolutely right. Sometimes technology needs to get to a point where something can exist. It's an idea that's been there. And people need to kind of have that technology catch up to create it. So
Hmm.
is there like, and I know there's certain things you probably can't share, but is there like a really fun product or project that you worked on recently, or that you'd like to share about, and kind of tell us, our listeners, about what was exciting about that product or something to that effect?
Right now, I am working with a gentleman who's actually, I think, probably came to me 8 years ago, something like that. And we built him a prototype. And then it sat for a while because, like, he had to get funding. He had to
Hmm.
decide, was he going to license this idea, or was he going to be taking it on, wearing all the hats, doing the marketing, doing the manufacturing, doing the shipping, building a website. So those are the challenges that usually a startup, or in this case an inventor, deals with. But he decided he was going to dive right in. He joined the cultivator program, and I'm having so much fun working with him. It's has no technology whatsoever. So that actually is kind of a blessing sometimes.
Less
We're
to go wrong.
not trying to figure out, how to run a flex circuit,
Right.
how to stack circuit boards. It's a very simple technology, but it's a gardening cart, which is patented because it contains water. You don't have to haul a hose around. You wheel all of your gardening supplies to wherever you want to work. You can sit on it. You can water from it. You have all your tools with you. And I am so excited to see this young company, get into manufacturing. He's got hundreds of people who already want the product.
Hmm.
So it's exciting to see it from start to finish. And we are still tweaking the design, and we're going to be turning it over to manufacturing very soon. But I'm very excited to see this home-based product, Buffalo, New York, this very dedicated entrepreneur launch his product.
Well, that's great. And I think,
Yeah.
if you're a gardener, then maybe that's something that you need, right?
Yeah.
So, oh,
So I should at least tell you the name of it. It's called
sure.
the Big Daddy Garden Caddy.
Oh, I love it. I love those kinds of names because I'm usually the one that's like coming up with things like that, and my kids are rolling their eyes a little bit at me, but still,
Right,
you know,
right.
I think that's
You're
great.
not going to
Awesome.
forget the name.
No, I'll be looking for it out there because we could use something like that for sure. Um, So, but I do want to ask, like, so there's a stumper question I usually ask towards the end of the podcast, and I kind of want to give you a little time to think about it. So I'll ask you a couple other little questions too. But
A
um,
stumper.
a stumper, I say it's a stumper, and I usually warn people, and I probably my listeners are tired of hearing me say the stumper question, but it's really is there anything I haven't like brought up or we haven't talked about that you want to make sure you get out in the world, right? To talk about your company or what you do or just in general. And then while you're thinking about that, I'll ask what maybe some simpler questions just to get to know Mary a little bit more. And hopefully those aren't stumpers too. But um, so I'll start with like, was there a person in your life or growing up that you admired and inspired you? It could be some historical, it could be someone in the family, it could be a friend, whatever. That really just made an impact on you deciding to kind of go in the direction that you did.
I discovered industrial design in a search for, what am I going to do as a career? And
Hmm.
so, I wasn't directed in that way. I was a fine art major. I didn't want to teach.
Hmm.
I didn't want to go into teaching. It's like I was creative. For my field, you need a strong left brain, right brain balance. You need that
Hmm.
creative, artistic, and logical.
Hmm.
So I was looking for that balance, and I discovered an industrial design program in Philadelphia, which just I read the description. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally found it.
Yeah.
But once I joined that program, the chair of the department, who also taught some of the classes, had a huge influence on me. He
Mhm.
had a industrial design firm as well in Philadelphia. I ended up working for him 2 summers and my senior year, and his influence was tremendous because he was very realistic, very grounded, made sure that we all understood a lot of what I've continued to learn in my field, but to understand the challenges, the failures, and to set the bar really, really high. And I appreciated that.
Well, it sounds like a great person to have in any point of your life, but at a very influential time of when you're kind of deciding what you're going to do next. I think that's
Yeah.
terrific and
Yep.
cool. So, how about when you were growing up, like what was the job that you wanted? What was the career, when you were like in grade school or whatever, saying I'm going to be this when I grow up?
I only knew art. I would spend my lunch hours, in the art room, always had very supportive, educators that said, okay, just let her go, use what you want, experiment with any material you want. So I did pottery and painting. And so everything was like hands-on. And
Hmm.
that was the beauty of going into the career that I am in, because you make prototypes. I have a bandsaw and a drill press and, all the tools that you need. What's nice is that 3D printing has come
A long way.
it's really changed how we prototype now, and how fast you prototype, and just having a couple running at all times to experiment, to test, to modify, it speeds things up
Hmm.
dramatically, which kind of has really impacted our industry.
Yeah, and you're in a place where you can kind of do what you love, right? So there's the business aspect, but you're getting to create, you're getting to, you know, um, still do art, right?
Right.
And I think that's awesome, and not everybody gets to do that. I often tell people that you really got to pick a career that you love, work that you love to do, because then it doesn't seem
Mhm.
like work, right? So you're very fortunate to be in a position where you can do that every day, and that's great. So let's circle back to that big stumper question. Is there anything that you wanted to share that we haven't talked about?
I can't I can't think of anything, Nick.
It's
Sorry to
okay.
disappoint you. I will do a
No,
shout out. I will do a shout out, though,
that's
actually,
perfect
for
too.
RIT's industrial design program.
Yeah, they've got
I've
a great
had
one.
my staff, longtime staff, came from the industrial design program there. A great program. Uh, I've had summer interns from there as well,
Yeah.
and I can speak very highly of that program.
They have a fabulous program, and I worked there for a little while, and part of my fundraising experience was helping with industrial design, and meeting with alumni and talking to the faculty there, and just amazes me like the concepts that the students and all of all of that community. I used to joke around saying it's kind of hard being oh, what is it? What did I say? Oh, I walk around campus and everyone there is so much smarter than me. With all these things that they're doing, so I think it's a great place to get talented people, and I'm glad that you're engaging with them, and bringing in new young professionals that are going to learn a lot of things from you and your company. Here you are giving back again. I think that's great. So, well, Mary, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time, and learning more about ProdcutLogic, and how you make the next generation of things that are available to make lives a lot easier, and make some business people really have their dreams come true. So, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Nick, for what you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm Nick Koziel, and this has been another episode of That Sounds Terrific. And joining me today was Merry Constantino.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Don't forget to check out the show notes and our website at thatsoundsterrific.com to find the contact information and the best ways to volunteer with the organizations that we feature. If you know someone that is doing terrific things and think they should be featured in a future episode, be sure to email us their name, contact info, and short description of what they're doing at thatsoundsterrific@gmail.com. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and give us some social media love by liking our Facebook page, That Sounds Terrific. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds Terrific 2 and Instagram at Sounds Terrific. We love hearing your feedback on how to make our show sound even more terrific. Till next time.